Well, hello, and welcome to the Astrology channel. I am Joe G, and I'm an astrologer. And for Christmas, I would like as many scents as I can get my hand on. That would be nice. As always, I'm with Kyle Pierce, my good friend. Hi, Kyle. What would you like for Christmas this year?
Hi, Joe. I'm Kyle.
Also an astrologer.
For Christmas, I would like Jesus to return and save us all. No, shit.
In this political climate, that is really the thing.
I know it's dangerous. No, I really want a punching bag. Oh, specifically a heavy bag, because I want to kick it.
Oh man, that's a nice activity for Christmas Eve, actually, as we're gonna see. But Kyle, what's happening this week?
This week we have the last of three Mercury-Jupiter oppositions between Mercury in Sagittarius and Jupiter in Gemini. We have Venus completing a square from Aquarius to Uranus in Taurus, conjunct Algol, and the Sun in Capricorn will complete a contra antitia with Jupiter in Gemini. There we go.
Cool. And as always, we'll start with Monday. It is the moon's day. The moon is waning in Libra, out of element, Peregrine in Saturn's decan, and Mercury storms, moving from a Mars sextile to a Mercury sextile. And then later on, she is moving towards a benefic enclosure, a grand air trine. This day is interesting because we've been back here not too long ago with the moon, and the image was kind of like this sort of kumbaya sort of moment. And I'm going to get a little bit of that too this time around with this series of sextiles completing. It's pretty interesting, kind of has this nice collaborative vibe to it. But the one thing that I was sitting with as I was preparing for this is that although there's this push for all these planets to work together and to try and fix a lot of these problems and to feel good and all that through these series of sextiles, a great majority of these planets are actually just in places that they're not necessarily at their best. And when they do have good things going on for them, it's things that they have to work pretty hard to get the benefits out of. So I think that the beginning of the day, focusing more so on this Mars-Mercury sextile, we can be addressing some of the things that we've been talking about with Mercury retrograde, this flurry of headlines, all the stressful news and the impending troubles ahead with this Mars Pluto opposition. But I think that moving towards later in the day with this benefic enclosure, there's this maybe push to kind of like let some of that stuff just be in the background for a second, especially since we're in holiday week. It maybe is just this sort of like, like these things are difficult and things are less than ideal, but there's good things to there's good things that we can do together, I guess. And that's what I was having in this image. It's just the moon in the center of this circle where people are talking to each other. Everybody's kind of having these different conversations. Some people look distressed, some people look a little bit more excited. It's kind of the moon just holding space, I guess, for everybody to have their turn to speak and share how they're feeling and share their ideas, especially through a grand air trine.
Increasingly today, the moon sort of looks like it's running like a group therapy session for the entire solar system right now, which like the moon in Libra would be pretty good at. You would think it's very good at like holding space for others. Sometimes the pressure to make space for other people can leave us feeling squeezed out. But overall, I like today a lot, actually, especially more towards the evening when the moon completes the trine with Jupiter and then starts moving into a nice little cozy spot where it's applying to a trine with Venus. So it's getting a lot of like benefic love. And yeah, I think because the moon is now focused on emptying things out, clearing things out that don't really need to be there, or maybe clearing away obstacles to a more perfect union.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I like that you brought the last quarter moon too, because that just made me think about like in this moment to just kind of like blow some steam off before you go be with family that might disagree with you, or like you might meet people that might disagree with you. Just kind of like, let's just get it all out now.
Yeah.
And then once we're there, we can just let it all just be as it is, sort of thing.
Yeah, actually, or like get some like different ideas or perspectives on things so that you can like enter those situations with a different attitude or like just a different way, looking at it in a different way that makes it easier to like not get really mad when your uncle, you know, brings up political things that hopefully nobody does on Christmas because it's not prescribed.
But on that note, today is not too difficult of a day. We gave it a 2.5 difficulty. It's like a 50-50, but there is more utility to it. We gave it a 3, and I think the difficulty is addressing some of these ideas that we might have and that we might have to maybe keep on lock, or maybe we have to give the edited version to other people just to appease egos and frustrations and all of that. And I think the utility is being able to find a channel to blow some of that steam off. But Kyle, who is in this therapy circle today?
I guess everybody but Saturn, but I think
Yes,
we're looking at
actually.
we're looking at the grand air trine. I think we're looking at air signs primarily and Cancer as always.
Cool. Moving on to our Tuesday. It is December 24th, Christmas Eve. It's Mars's day. Mars is in Leo, out of element in Saturn's decan and Jupiter's terms, and applying towards a Pluto opposition.
Well, you know, the really nice thing about oppositions with Pluto is that most of the time it's not really there, or like what you think is there isn't actually there. It still can be this kind of like dark spot in your vision that you like, oh, you know, I'm going to get you, you know, and there might be something actually behind the like giant shadow that's cast, but chances are that what's actually there is way smaller than the shadow that it casts. And, you know, we don't have to like let it eat up our entire lives. Usually that part is left up to us or the planet that is being aspected harshly by Pluto. You don't have to do that. And so don't.
Yeah. I feel like the biggest thing to me with this one is just that Mars opposition is approaching on this day, but it's still not quite there yet. The thing that I like about the day before is that it gives us that opportunity before Christmas Eve to like have a little bit of like a check-in and make sure that everything's all right. Was speaking to me the most about this one is just this idea of Mars being triggered or like all these triggers kind of coming in and you're having like to keep your cool through that, because really the problem is not that day. The problem is something that's ahead, and that's even what I have in the picture. It's like Mars walking through the sand. It sees this giant in the distance, but it's in the distance. Like it can be alarming to have that sort of like looming thing in your background. But if you were to actually look at your immediate environment, especially at a time like this where everybody's celebrating whatever holiday they're celebrating, there is definitely optimism to be found. Today might be just an invitation to be like, hey, like if you're stressed, recognize that stress and that it is there. But also recognize that you don't have to deal with it right now. There may be cases where things could pop up to the surface and you might feel a little aggravated by something that someone said or someone did. But I think it's always important to remember that you can remove yourself from certain situations. And I think that the thing to watch out for on this Tuesday is just to not be too responsive to any of these things and to kind of just like know that time to address them will come in the near future. And with that said, that's where we went with a fair amount of difficulty today. And you probably noticed this from like the previous weeks. Like Mars is struggling a little bit, has some problems to solve. So we gave it a 4.5 and a 1 utility. And I just want to say that shouldn't be an alarming thing, especially considering that we have that Monday where we have that nice grand air trine. And I feel like a grand air trine is going to be one of the best things to get for solving some of these relational issues that we might have. So I think that I would just use December 23rd as your day to kind of prepare yourself for these next few days, which, like we said, some things can kind of like bubble up to the surface. But that's it, Kyle. Who should be especially attentive today?
I think the Leos and the Mars ruled people will be most affected. So that would be Leo, Aries, and Scorpio.
Right. Moving on to December 25th. This is Christmas Day. It is also Mercury's Day, with Mercury in Sagittarius, in sect, in the moon's decan and Venus's terms, opposite Jupiter, and moving towards a square to Saturn. This is really kind of like the grand finale of that whole Mercury retrograde cycle. The biggest aspect that Mercury had throughout this retrograde was the Jupiter opposition, this sort of like mutual reception thing, and also the Saturn square. And so the thing that I was thinking about for this day is just kind of this final assignment. Mercury trying to figure out what information was worthy and relevant, or what sort of big headlines it wanted to proliferate into the world. And so in the image, I have baby Mercury and Jupiter just coming to Grandma Saturn with their little essay or their newspaper. This is the news that we cooked up for you, Grandma. And she looks a little not so pleased about some of these news. Before we started recording, I talked about it being this sort of on eggshells Christmas sort of vibe, where we might be really excited to talk about certain things and really passionate about it, but then we don't know how certain people might receive it, especially these Saturnian figures, where it's more so like the elderly or the people in power, or like the head of the family, or these sorts of people.
What I really like about this image is that you can read it multiple ways. I was actually imagining that the letter was for like the younger boy, and that like grandma and the brother like wrote an essay explaining to the little boy that Santa Claus isn't real, and that actually, you know, he's a myth that is, you know, told to children in order to control their behavior and to scare them into not behaving poorly so that they don't get coal for Christmas, right? It's actually a mechanism for control and for, you know, making Coca-Cola rich. It's explaining this to like an 8-year-old. And maybe some people will find that they have to work a little harder to find the joy. There may be a Grinch or two, you know, in the recording session.
Oh my God. Don't call me out like that in the public.
Your jolly front has been exposed.
I think I'm very open about my hatred for Christmas and other holidays. Something they said reminded me of this idea of just the feeling that you get when you meet a group of people and then you totally think that everybody agrees with you, and then you say something and then you realize that no one does. Or like that one person strongly disagrees with you, or you're just like in shock because you said something that you totally thought was like common sense, and everybody just kind of like vibes with that thing. I feel like that's kind of the feeling that we captured with today.
And suddenly you feel like you're surrounded by like hostile forces.
Well, for those reasons, we gave it a 3 difficulty and a 3 utility today. It's not as bad as it sounds. There's a lot that can be done. Mercury and Jupiter still having that sort of mutual reception. It's just Saturn getting in the middle of that kind of sours things and makes it a little bit more complicated. Overall, the difficulty is just navigating these social settings, and the utility is in being able to do so. Sometimes you just shouldn't say something. It might be hard with Mercury and Sagittarius, but Kyle, who should be watching out for their levels of excitement so they don't get disappointed today?
I mean, we're looking at mutable signs primarily, maybe with a little bit of Capricorn and Aquarius.
All right, moving on to December 26th. That is Jupiter's day. Jupiter is still in Gemini, in detriment, in his element, Mars's decan and Venus's terms, opposite Mercury, and departing from a Saturn square.
There seems to be like some dissonance between like what was hoped for and like what was achieved, what we have. You ask for a computer for Christmas, you open up the box, it's not the model that you wanted, and you got to send it back to, you know, the factory or something. And then both you and the person who gave it to you are disappointed because you're not happy, and like they wanted to make you happy, and then everybody's just like, oh, but you still have a computer, so it's maybe not the one you wanted, but it's still a thing. It's not like bad. It's just like, oh, that's not quite what I wanted, but I could probably make do with this. Or if I got this other thing, if I got this, this graphics card, I could upgrade it and then it'll be what I want. Just there might be more steps involved to making it what was hoped for.
I find that it's interesting also that this is happening on Boxing Day, because one thing that I've been hearing a lot is just the sense of like a lot of economical fears, because the economy is kind of not in the best shape, but and it seems like things are likely to get more expensive in the near future. Anyone keeping up with the news probably has heard about that. And so I was thinking about this Mercury-Jupiter opposition and how Mercury is very much tied to the news. We've even been talking about that as a device throughout the entire Mercury retrograde cycle and these series of Jupiter oppositions. So I feel like today can also have this a little bit of this sense of haste to just kind of get that deal, get that sale before it goes out, and everybody's kind of like going crazy. And the image is just them trying to fix this machine and trying to put it together and trying to get things to work again. And I was almost seeing this as the moment where they turn the machine on for the first time, and it's kind of like, oh, is it gonna work? Is it not gonna work? And there's this sort of sense of anticipation. Just Boxing Day and stuff can be this sort of like, can I afford this? Can I not afford this? But maybe this thing will be more expensive later. Maybe I should get it now. Or what do I do? I think it's likely that we can fall under these sort of frenzies. And so I don't think today is necessarily a difficult day, but it can feel pretty busy. We matched it evenly both ways, same thing as Wednesday. So it's 3 difficulty and 3 utility. And I think the difficulty is being in that busy space, but the utility is also having the opportunity to get to those things. I think the difficulty and the utility of the day are kind of the same, and it's really about how one navigates some of that stuff. But Kyle, who's trying to get to that sale today?
I think we're still looking at the mutable signs. I think you're spot on, though, by the way. I think that's a very good take.
Thanks. Moving on to December 27th. It is, or Friday, it is Venus's day. We're still in a shopping mood with Venus in Aquarius, out of element, and the moon's decan and Mars's terms square Uranus and the moon, forming a bit of a T-square. T-square week this week. The biggest thing that I was leaning on with this sense of rebelliousness is the Venus-Uranus square. I think whereas Jupiter and Mercury might be rushing to get to a sale, Venus might be tempted to do some more shady stuff to get to that, to get to those same results. I don't know. I think in the image, I was trying to capture a moment where it kind of just looks like Venus is looking at these shelves, but maybe if we looked at Venus's pockets, we might find something in there. The big sense that I was getting for today is this ability to take advantage of a troublesome situation, or even just, we talked about, since everybody is running crazy and everybody's distracted, then maybe Venus sees that as a moment of opportunity because no one's looking at her. So I might as well just, no one's gonna miss this sort of thing. I feel like the vibe of the day is not necessarily shoplifting. I feel like there's definitely this sort of trickster Venus vibe to the day, I guess, with Uranus square and Moon in Scorpio squaring Venus like that.
When you look at this decan, the 3rd decan of Aquarius, and you get the 7 of Swords card, which has a lot of ideas around stealing things. It's also under the triplicity system, a Venus ruled decan. And it's not you don't get romantic, sexy Venus in this decan. You actually get Venus finding ways to connect the irreconcilable to the whole, taking this set of principles and being the mediator between it and, the existing established reality. And well, obviously, this is too extreme over here for what's happening over here. So we might need to leave out this part, leave out that part. I don't think they're ready for that yet. Let's not give them that bit yet. Let's give them this carefully managed, curated version of our agenda based on what we could actually get done right now. And it ends up getting more done than could happen otherwise. but nobody likes Venus for that reason. It's like, well, the party that it represents, it's seen as compromising too much. And the mainstream also thinks that they're still representing an extreme group. So Venus doesn't get the love that she deserves in this decade. But I think she has a big job to do with reconciling that Moon-Uranus opposition, which does, speak to some disruptive social influences and maybe the desire for things which can never be, yet we push for them anyway. And maybe needing to find a way to root that into what is actually achievable right now could be called for.
Yeah, totally. And I think that that's why we settle at a 3 difficulty. I think that's the difficulty, is just maybe dealing with some of these wants or desires or this need to reconcile something that maybe doesn't need to be reconciled right now. Maybe that's something that you don't necessarily absolutely need, but the utility, we gave it a 2, and I think we find that in just, I don't know, Venus is still in Aquarius, which is a very brainy sign, and I think we can find some ways to not succumb, I guess, to all of that energy.
Put on a good faith while we're dealing with the difficult things happening under the hood.
Cool. And who is our, I was gonna say who's our shoplifter for the day, but I said that I'm not encouraging that, so I should probably use something else. But who's that person? Who's our Venus of the day, Kyle?
Yeah, I think we're looking at Aquarius, Libra, and Taurus, and probably a little bit of Scorpio too.
Moving on to our Saturday, we have December 28th. It's Saturn's day, and Saturn is in Pisces, out of element, Peregrine, in Jupiter's second end terms, separating from a Mercury and Jupiter square, and soon being squared by the Moon.
Yeah, Saturn's trying to build structure and order. The tools that it has to do that with are like squishy eyeballs and, things that are not square and hard and solid. It's in Pisces, right? But, it's getting that reception from Jupiter, and it's sort of getting some suggestions on how to make do or on how to manage its environment from Jupiter. And yeah, the order that Saturn's able to cobble together today looks more like abstract art than it does an Excel sheet, right? It's not ordered and organized, but it might look kind of cool and actually function at the same time. So build your eyeball pyramids today, and maybe those will work for you.
Yeah, I think that's really it with Saturn. It's like Saturn is getting what it needs, but maybe not what it wants, and that's a little bit of the difficult situation right now. But Jupiter is receiving Saturn in multiple ends, so it's like, yes, we're getting received. We're receiving all these things. They may come with certain restrictions and rules as to how we utilize those things, but we still have it. But I think Saturn in a water sign like this might still struggle to shake that disappointment that this is not what I wanted, or just, yeah, this is fun, but I would much rather be doing this or that. And I think that it's also really interesting to have had the moon cycle kind of sync up with our Saturdays. In mundane astrology, the moon often symbolizes the people. And we talked about how Saturn has been allowed back into this Pisces island. It's roaming the alleys. It's doing its thing. It's been given permission to stay. But there's also all these rules and regulations, especially thinking about Jupiter's terms. It's you can't be here, but you got to do good, Saturn. You just got to be a good guy. And Saturn might want to start some shit sometimes. That's just Saturn's job. And I think that thing that I was trying to capture with the image, all these eyes in the background, is just the scrutiny from the people, whoever the people are. It's just everybody is looking at Saturn, trying to make sure that Saturn is indeed keeping up its promises and being on good behavior, I guess. Yeah, not to say that if you're a Saturnian person, you just want to destroy the fucking world, but you might just have unorthodox ideas on how to fix it, and maybe there's some pushback from the people, whoever the people are. Yeah, and that's why we gave it a pretty even rating for today too. We gave it a 2.5 difficulty and a 2.5 utility. And it's a similar situation with what we were talking about with Mercury and Jupiter, especially because Saturn is also part of that T square. It's a lot of the same things are difficult are also the same things that are useful about the day. It's like we said, that case of having what you need, but maybe not what you want. And I guess this is a week of managing expectations. But Kyle, who are our Saturn people today?
We're looking at mutable signs again, and the Saturn ruled signs, Aquarius and Capricorn.
Moving on to the last day of our week. It is Sunday, the Sun's day. The Sun is in Capricorn, out of element, Peregrine in Jupiter's decan in terms, moving towards a sextile to Saturn in Jupiter's contra Antiscia. Yeah, I think it's nice to end the week on that note. I'm really liking that everybody who goes through Capricorn kind of gets to wave at Saturn and Pisces and be like, "This is how home feels like." Like we're here. We see you, Saturn. I know that you wish you were here, but at least we have we can take a look at Capricorn for you. And I feel like Saturn has this just on the vein of reception. Just is like, hey, thanks for relaying that information. Here's some Pisces, whatever nonsense. Last week, we had the Sun just ingressing into Capricorn, and we talked about how in Sagittarius, the Sun had this vision of the goal. In Capricorn, the Sun started to climb towards that goal. And then now I think that the Saturn sextile that is building up, it's kind of this leg up on a difficult situation. Like if the Sun's difficulty is climbing that wall, then in the image I just have, Lady Saturn assisting the Sun coming out of that wall and kind of just, helping him get to work and get to business. Like it's not necessarily like, here's a Christmas gift or here's like this great thing, Sun. It's more like, here's some tools for you to go chop some trees or whatever. At least you don't have to chop it with your bare hands.
I actually really like this too. It's not like, it actually speaks to what I think is something that's useful often for most people who don't just have like, excess talent and connection and everything like going for them towards a specific direction. This is the Sun in Capricorn. Like it can't even see Leo. It doesn't remember even what Leo is like. It's rooted in the world, in like, what do I have to do to not die and pay my bills? And the Sun doesn't get to be like its most authentic self, but it is able to find itself like in the next steps that it has to take to get to, where it wants to go. This isn't like being handed like the dream job or like your most authentic dream vision of the empire you want to rule or whatever. Like this is literally the next most logical step toward your long-term goal or toward just things being a little bit better than they were yesterday, which is good. It's usually all most of us are ready for at any given time. It's not always the best thing to be handed everything you want in one fell swoop because you don't necessarily know how to handle it. So this is kind of like, hi, I see you're making progress. Good job. Here you go. Like, here's a bonus. Here's a little more responsibility. And let's see what you can do with that.
Yeah, I like that.
A little something.
And for those
For your
reasons,
trouble.
we gave today not too much of a difficult rating. It's a 2 difficulty, and we gave a 3 utility. I think the difficulty is just, getting back to business, I guess. Not so much on December 29th, because a lot of people might still be on vacation and stuff. There's this sense of like getting ready for the next year and all the things that you might want to accomplish in that year. And the utility is having a little bit of help to do so. But Kyle, who is, I guess, thinking about these goals and getting a little bit of assistance to tend to them?
I think Capricorn is definitely going to be feeling it. And then really Pisces and Gemini.
Well, thank you for watching today's episode. We're kind of having a change of outfit just to come and tell you guys about a couple things. First, we're going to be taking a break next week. That's kind of like the big one. There won't be any horoscopes next week, so we can have some holiday time for ourselves as well. But we're also planning a lot of new things for the channel in the new year, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about that.
So Part of our new, say, lineup of content is going to be, in many ways, a revival of a podcast I did long ago called Killer Cosmos, where we kind of take deep dives into charts of, we'll say, like extreme example charts and how they play out for people like serial killers or people who are involved in nefarious activities to varying degrees. We'll break it up with some palate cleansers and some nice stories too. But that's going to be a bigger project. And as a result, I'm going to step away from the horoscopes for now, at least. You'll see me a little less regularly, but that's okay.
You're also going to be seeing a little less of me, because part of that is that I will also be working on my own show. I'm writing a series of original myths, kind of like we did with our all gold video, but looking at the elements this time. So I'll be writing a series of 4 original myths for that reason. And so the horoscopes in the new year will be a lot shorter. They'll be a lot quicker, but I hope that that makes it easier and more digestible for you guys to watch. And yeah, I hope that you guys are excited for these shows that we're writing independently. And we're also writing a show together, which will be a debate show where other astrologers also come to debate hot topics in astrology, which I'm pretty excited for. I'll be hosting the show. Kyle will be one of the judges, which will be pretty exciting. These were the shows that we've been talking about creating since the very beginning of the channel. Well, happy holidays. I hope you guys enjoy having a break like we will. And if you want a reading with me, I am Joe G, and I'm at themercuryrising.com.
Yeah, happy holidays, happy new year. And if you would like a reading with me, you can find me at KylePierceAstrologer.com.
All right, guys.
See you
I'll
guys.
see you next time.
Ta-ta for now.